Welcome to this edition of Wheaton Remembers. My name is John Hartness, and today we're going to talk about growing up on the north side of Wheaton in the 60s. Today I have Mr. Nick Kosiara with me and Larry Tabor. Nick, your family came to the shores of Cheese Creek first. Why don't you give us a little information on your family and how you got to Wheaton?
Yeah, my mother moved with her parents into a little white house they built on Geneva Road, right by where Vandermolen's eventually built the Mushroom House. So they built their little house out there on Geneva Road when it was gravel. And as a matter of fact, my grandmother, after they moved in, after a couple years, needed more room. So she dug the basement under the house by hand.
Your grandmother did?
My grandmother did. So she had time during the day. My grandfather was working. So she would carry the dirt out in buckets out to the back of their yard and dump them in the swamp. So they extended their backyard a little bit. Then my grandfather would come home on evenings and weekends and he would shore things up.
Wow.
And then she would dig again in the morning. So
when did they get the property on what is now Ranch Road?
Well, it was on President Street. That was 1952.
And then it was how many acres?
Well, we, with my grandmother and two uncles, purchased 16 acres on President. It was between President, Driving Park, and then on the north was Countryside, and on the south was Parkway. Right. So there was obviously no Ranch Road. Right. We had a tenant farmer, Bert Smith, who lived up on Stoddard in Geneva, and he would lease that property from us, and he grew corn, beans, wheat, whatever was the crop of the year. And eventually we sold that property to Durable Construction.
That was Jay Stream's company, was it?
Yeah.
Who would go on to build Carroll Stream.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and he eventually sold that off to Tri-Land Homes, and I still remember waking up one morning as a kid and hearing heavy equipment and looking out my bedroom window and seeing earth movers coming down my grandmother's driveway between our houses, and they were building Ranch Road. Right. So eventually then they built all the homes in there, and your home included.
Correct.
So
Larry, how did you get out to Wheaton?
Well, my parents, when they got married, they lived downstairs in the bottom part of a two-flat in Cicero, where my grandparents lived. And we lived there for the first 3.5 years. And my dad wanted to move farther away from the city and get a home, and we moved to Grand Avenue, which is right off Pleasant Hill Road in Wheaton. It's the northwest part of Wheaton. And at the time, and I believe it's still unincorporated, part of Wheaton and part of...
But that's known as a Pleasant Hill neighborhood by most?
Pleasant Hill Road neighborhood. And, that section between Jewel Road and Geneva Road. Right. And that was kind of the original homes built at that time in there. Just west of that and north, actually, there's still pretty much cornfields. And the small school, Pleasant Hill School, was up on County Farm and Geneva Road. And then our neighborhood. And so we came in 1955.
Okay. So in 1960, after Tri-Land was started by Kelly Masseri, my parents bought their house at 724 Ranch Road. We moved from Elmhurst. It was in June. I remember the moving day that the movers were out in front, and my parents decided to go to the grocery store and get some milk and lunch meat and what have you, and and a six-pack of beer. And that's when they discovered, after the second grocery store at the Pick and Save, that Wheaton was dry. I thought Dad was going to tell the movers to put the stuff back on the truck. We were going back to Elmhurst, but then we discovered Malloy's and a couple other places. Everywhere there was a zig and a zag in Wheaton, there was usually some kind of place that was a watering hole. So let's talk a little bit about grade schools. Nick, where did you go to grade school?
I went to Washington School. We were I think my brother, who was 2 years older than me, I think he was in the first class that after they built Washington. So previous to that, we would have gone to Hawthorne School where you went. But then they built Washington, and it was 2-block walk, and they put in a gravel sidewalk along President Street for us, so we were able to, as kids from kindergarten on, we walked to school. You know, no rides, no parental escort. You know,
Right.
we just walked to school, and then we came home for lunch. We ate lunch and watched
What'd you watch at lunch?
either Lunchtime Little Theater or Bozo Circus.
Okay, good.
So, and 3:30 we came home and we changed clothes and we went out and played.
Right.
No idea where we were going. We just went out and played until the bell rang, your mother's whistle blew, or whatever it was, you know.
Right.
So,
The street lights.
yes. We had
Yeah.
the street lights, gathering point in the evenings.
So, Larry, where did you go to grade school?
I went to grade school. My parents wanted to send us, the boys, to a Catholic school, so we went to, I was in St. John the Baptist from kindergarten through 8th grade. And at that point, that was run by the Jesuit fathers and Franciscan sisters.
So you got a good education.
Well, yeah, and you also get pretty good discipline when you're in those
that's where I was
schools.
headed, yeah.
Yeah. So that was not an area you wanted to challenge too much when we were there. But it was a very good education, especially how much at that time that they stressed, just the ability to read and write and put your thoughts down on paper. They really hammered away at that. So.
You didn't have Dick and Jane and Spot?
Well, that might have been very early on, but yeah, we were actually, it was mandatory. I can't believe what grade it started, but a book a week to read.
Okay.
Somewhere around 6th grade, 5th grade, something like that.
So I attended Hawthorne School, which is on Wakeman, and I was the only kid in the whole block that ended up going there. One of my strongest memories of Hawthorne School was we were on the playground, and Coach Hurley, who's a legend here in town as the leprechaun, called us together to the playground and announced that President Kennedy had been shot and obviously eventually died. And then, of course, those that went to Hawthorne will remember Hurley for his famous St. Patrick days. Everybody had to wear green if you wanted to pass or didn't want to be running around laps the rest of the season. Or and of course the Beam Club, where you had to climb a rope and touch the beam at the top. So Nick, Larry, what did you guys do after school and in the summertime for fun? I mean, what were we doing out there? Were we playing 500? Were we riding our bikes? Were we, I remember hanging around up and down Cheese Creek, which started up at the little pond, which is now the pond around Thornhill Apartments on Thornhill Way. That went wrapped around past the cheese company, which I think is Falbo.
S. Falbo Cheese.
And then went across Geneva to through the Hawthorne subdivision and out St. Mark's and across into the Northside Park Lagoon.
Right.
So,
Those are actually the headwaters of Winfield Creek.
right.
Which is where I live, up by Bloomingdale Road and North Avenue. So my mom, when she was growing up, that creek was very close to their property, and that created part of the marsh behind their house. So they always called it Stinky Creek. They had no idea it was actually Winfield Creek or even otherwise Cheese Creek.
Right.
But S. Falbo Cheese Company, at that time, there was no EPA, there were no regulations. A lot of their rinse water and whey and such, all their byproducts went right into the creek because the water carried it away.
Right.
So,
Which is probably a good reason. It was a good thing we didn't eat those carp we speared. And,
oh
you know,
yeah, that's right.
Larry, what'd you guys do out there in
Well,
Pleasant
pretty
Hill?
much we had, there were like 2 blocks. Grand Avenue where I lived, there was about 3.5 blocks long. And then Box Elder Road, which wrapped into the end of it, the next parallel street. Between those 2 streets, we probably had 20 kids within 4 years of each other. So we were in 2 vacant lots between 2 homes. So we would play a lot of baseball. We'd start in the morning, have lunch, play all day, have dinner, go back out again during the summer or after school. And we gauged what size ball we used by how many windows we broke in left field and right field. So we knew at a certain point when the number of windows went down that you went up to the bigger softball and then the 16-inch. So, but we did a lot of that, a lot of football in the fall with all the kids. And one of the things that really got you into shape is we played ball tag, which would turn into individual vendettas. And guys would chase each other for 4 miles, and then the guy would duck, and you'd miss him, and just pass out because you were out of gas at that point.
Northside Park had a lot of stuff that we did over there. I did over there. I know that the above ground pool is where I learned how to swim. That was built by the WPA in the 30s. I remember going in through the locker room, the pipes were leaking, and you know, you just prayed you got up there before the whole thing gave way, and then you got up on the top, and you could see all across the park, all around the lagoon, and it was a beautiful pool upstairs.
It was high.
Yeah, it was high.
It was very high.
And then if you were lucky, you picked up all the baskets, and one of the pool guards may give you a sheet of paper, and you got a bag of popcorn, you know, as payment. That was a big treat back then. And then they knocked it down, and now it's a sledding hill, you know. And of course, Cheese Creek, you know, we'd wade in there and play and chase the goldfish or carp, whatever you want to call them. And then up there where the pond was, there was somebody tied a rope, and we go swimming in that old pond, and you know, we were kids and stuff. But then, after Kennedy was assassinated, one of the things that changed, even in Wheaton, was the type of music we started listening to. I know, Nick, you were in a garage band.
Yes.
And with some of the other guys at school. And, you know, we went from, you know, Frank Sinatra or basically into the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the teachers, a lot of the girls in class would take one of the Beatles' names, like John. We'd start calling him John or Ringo or whatever, and then I think it was Mrs. Martin in 5th grade says, you know, that fad is going to pass, and these guys will just fade away.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, I mean, she was
They did 50 years later.
50 years later,
Still going.
They are still
So
going,
did you play any gigs, or you know, I mean, you know?
We played a birthday party.
Okay.
My brothers.
Were you paid?
Yeah.
Yes, we were. Yes, we were. He gave us $5.
And who was in this?
That was actually Chris Major, who was still an artist and fixture kind of in Wheaton for a while with Major Studios, and Paul Oyen and Scott Stearns.
Yeah, Paul's in Iowa now, if I remember right.
Yeah, we didn't really achieve any high level of fame.
That was a big thing then. We did the same thing.
Yeah.
We had a band from 7th, 8th grade. We carried it into freshman year, and it was a lot of fun. But you know, we played a couple of parties that were thrown for the 8th grade classes and that.
So it was the standard drums,
Drums, lead guitar, bass guitar. We had a guy that was actually really good on a piano or organ. He went on to go into punk rock music in England and really spent quite a bit of time there, yeah.
Good for him.
You might have known him, Ross Anderson from, he was at Wheaton North.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about shopping on the north end of town. It was basically in one spot, other than If you want to talk briefly, Larry, about the little store over by you, across from Borders.
Yeah, and it was there forever. It was there before we got there. And the building still stands. It's now a music studio right on Pleasant Hill Road, just south of where I lived. And it was called Berner's Grocery Store. And they had groceries and pop and candy and ice cream. But if you needed the staples for your house too, I mean, they had fruit and vegetables and milk and things like that too. So that really was our 7-Eleven of the time.
Right.
You know.
It was basically a mom and pop, and
Yeah, and they lived in the back of the store. It was, Mrs. Berner was an older lady at that time and lived in the back of the store.
but most of our parents did most of the shopping at the Hawthorne Shopping Center. Is that
Right. Yeah, my mom shopped at the Jewel.
the Jewel? And then there was on the south end of the
Pick and
shopping
Save.
center was Pick and Save.
That's right.
You know, and then that shopping center was built by Jay Stream, and it was going to be the anchor for his new town up just northwest called Carroll Stream. And he said that shopping will only be 2.5 miles away from Carroll Stream. So it was quite a commercial success. I know we staged a lot of the 4th of July parades there, starting I think in '62, and of course also the Memorial Day parades, where I would hike from there down to the cemetery and then have to run back home, back up to the north side. But a couple of stores stand out. One is Hawthorne Hardware. There was 3 brothers that owned it when we frequented it a lot. It was Dick, John, and George, and we'd come in, myself and Ron Steinberger and somebody else, and first thing is, all right, what are you guys building now? Well, we're building a helicopter. We need your help, you know. And they wouldn't start laughing or anything. They said, well, come on down here and we'll see if we got some helicopter parts or something, you know. And then we'd go and we'd try and build this helicopter out of, 2x4s or whatever, you know. But that's, that's the kind of guys they were. I mean, that's the kind of service you got from Hawthorne Hardware.
And the nice thing I liked about Hawthorne Hardware, even later in life, they didn't close until '99, but even in the '90s, you could go in there and say, okay, I need a 1024 machine head screw with just exactly a 3/8 lag made out of brass. You go in the back and they go, how many do you need? You know, and it would they'd blow the dust off and it would blow the old price tag off because it was just dry rotted there, you know. But it was one of those stores where no matter what you needed, you were always greeted by first name. You were always greeted with a smile, and same on the way out the door. And just had a revolving charge account. You know,
Right.
just ran a bill, and you would just sign for it. They would send you a bill at the end of the month, and it was very nice, very easy, very quality stuff, very quality people that were there as well. So it's too bad to see them go, and the big box home stores obviously gave them too much competition to stay.
Well, Ace moving down the street didn't help either.
That didn't help. No.
The other store that brings back a lot of fond memories is the hobby shop. They had that racetrack inside. You could buy a bottle of pop for 10 cents. You could race your car for 15-20 minutes for a quarter. And even if you spent your whole 35 cents when you first walked in, you'd still hang around in there and watch everybody else race and look in a counter and see what kind of neat cars and gear was under the glass for your next project.
Yeah.
I remember they used to have 500 lap races, and we'd stand on the corners and put the slot cars back on the.
You'd be track boys,
Yeah, we were track boys, And that was a lot of fun, and I was really sorry to see George West sell that store. And some guy, they built that track inside the store,
Yes.
and some guy cut it up and took it out of there. I don't know if he ever got it back together, but that was a lot of fun, especially being young kids growing up there. Hawthorne Drug, they had a soda fountain in there? I don't remember that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was on the back wall. So that was Jerry Kenningsmark had that, and that was, again, one of these very, very personal places to shop.
Right.
He knew all of your medical conditions, what would be best for you, and it wasn't the big online registry of what drug interactions you got to worry about, because he filled everything you took.
Right.
And so that did have a nice soda fountain in the back, and I remember the phosphates.
Great. There's some unique things that were in the north side of Wheaton. At the turn of the century, there was a racetrack. The north turn was on Geneva Road. The backstretch would run down what is now Driving Park. The south turn is now Countryside, and the front stretch is Washington. And the clubhouse would have been at Cole in Washington. And this is why J Stream probably used all the names that he did for the streets, like Bridle Lane and Turf and so on and so forth. There was another building on the corner of Geneva and Main Street, was the Mary Pogue School.
Several buildings.
Yeah, several
It was
buildings.
a large complex.
Right.
So.
That was closed by the time from what I remember. But that was an interesting place to go poke around.
Yeah, after it closed. I remember it being open because I remember seeing the people there, that they would have out in the yard, getting some outdoor time and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I also remember finding an old National Geographic at a garage sale. It was 1917, and there was actually an ad in there for Mary Pogue. And they were for, I don't remember the terminology then, it wasn't anything politically correct like functionally disabled or whatever,
Right.
but there was an ad in there. It was very private, very expensive, but they had quite the facility there. And I know after they closed that whole area there, Pudge Stevens from Stevens Disposal used to stage his trucks there and that sort of thing. So we did kind of, since it was abandoned and we were young, we kind of went through the place, and we were a little disturbed when we got into a basement of the main house and found actual padded cages.
Well, that
So,
would.
Yeah.
Kind of glad I didn't go in through there then.
Because I was okay, we're leaving here.
Well, another building that was a little ominous was the Theosophical Society
Yeah,
across the street.
still there.
It's still there. If you go to their website and watch their video, it's quite a building and quite a organization over there. And I remember Jeff Henry's mom worked over there, and they lived on the corner of Cole and Main Street.
Yeah.
And I believe she was one of the chefs over there, and was strictly vegetarian. But it was an ominous building, and we pretty much stayed out of that.
Yeah,
And
in high school, I was actually a member there.
Were you?
Several of us were, and the books were in the library were pretty much phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you walk into the library, and there was a rotunda just outside the library, and the whole rotunda was painted with the whole progression of evolution. And
I think it's still there.
yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, that's pretty classic. I would think it would
No,
be
it's
quite a loss if they would paint over it.
Yeah, they hosted the Dalai Lama
Mm-hmm.
at the Theosophical Society, and he gave a speech at Wheaton North in the auditorium, I think in the 80s. Another business that was up there that's no longer there is Scheffler's Flowers.
Yeah.
Bert and Jim had, their father had 7 acres under glass at one time. And that was, they had the dormitories over there for the employees.
That was a very
Yeah.
big place. That
Oh,
was
huge.
My mom worked there for several years. And
Real big place. They,
That's where you got all your prom flowers.
Yeah.
well, it was a ditch day on Valentine's Day for most of us because we'd be driving for them. Remember Jan Greil standing on the dock up there, and she'd give us our deliveries. You know, she'd give us a map. One of the guys would drive, and then one of the usually one of cheerleader or a pom-pom girl would drive with us, and then they'd run up the flowers. And we had to have everything done by 4 o'clock because, like Bert said, he said, you know, if Dad comes home and those flowers aren't there, he's expecting a big kiss and a smile when he gets home. And if they're not there, I'm going to be getting a phone call, you know.
Yeah.
But he was a good employer. And I coached basketball with Bert at St. Mark's School. Another interesting place up there was Tall Trees Nursing Home. That was Dan Rook's parents owned that. I remember visiting up there. It's at the end of Main Place across from St. Charles Road. It's now a snow removal place. But it was a nursing home, and first time I went up there, they had a lion tied to the tree, and which was rather disheartening when you first see that. But it didn't have any teeth and didn't have any claws, and they had a bunch of animals up there. Dan told me to give the residents something to do and keep them company.
They were actually occupational therapy for Elgin Hospital.
Oh, okay.
For the sanitarium over there. And they had everything from the lion, who she was just a sweetheart. She slept with the kids in bed, you know.
Oh, really?
And they had an ocelot, they had a bunch of deer, they had all kinds of animals there. And then the patients from the hospital would get their occupational therapy there by caring for the animals. And they would have just a short stint of several months, I guess, that they would live there. And maybe that's what we would normally be doing in a facility now, within the facility, but then moving to a halfway house kind of thing. So it was kind of normalizing them back into society.
Good. One of the biggest moments in Wheaton that I remember was the big snow in '67. I remember getting home from Franklin Junior High, shoveling, and it kept coming. I went out and shoveled again with my brother, kept coming, and we shoveled again, and finally my dad got home, and that was the end of the shoveling for about 3 days. You know, you guys have any stories about the big snow?
Oh yeah, we had our original house was a ranch, and the living room window is in the front of the house and probably about 7 feet up. And when we got up a couple of days into that storm, we had snow all the way up to halfway up the picture window. And that was not just a lot of snow, but there was a lot of wind and then a lot of drifting. And we were actually jumping off the roof of our house, much to my parents' dislike, into the snow drifts. And that was just a tough winter, cold, and I believe it's the same winter. Just shortly after that snowstorm, we had an ice storm where it rained and everything froze. And where we were at, it was all power lines, and for telephone and electric and the whole thing. And a lot of those things were just snapping and falling, and that was a tough winter.
Yeah. Any memories of that, Nick?
I remember waking up in the morning, and you know, when you're that age, you're not paying a whole lot of attention, you know, and woke up in the morning and I saw the time, and of course got all upset, we're late for school, and I come running out And my dad says, nobody's going anywhere. And I looked out our den windows, and it had drifted off the roof and completely covered the window. There was about this much at the very top that we could see daylight out of. And so later on, I was trying to get to your end of the neighborhood and go over to Dale Eddy's. And it was past my waist. There was no lifting and putting a leg down, so I ended up rolling halfway down the block, and finally got there, and we built an igloo in the front yard, and all we had to do was dig.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah, I remember after about 2 days, with all the parents home, the liquor cabinets were getting pretty empty. So my dad and a couple of the other neighbors, the delightfully named Bud Weiser.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Next door neighbor, they commanded our sleds and made the trek to Malloy's, a 6-mile round trip trek to Malloy's. They found out it was open first, and Brad brought back the sleds laden with gifts, and to much joy of the neighbors. But junior high, you went to Franklin, didn't you,
Yes.
Nick? Okay.
Yes.
Any special memories about Franklin Junior High?
How personal do we want to get?
Nothing real personal. Just some highlights.
It was a nice place. Well, other than first kiss, first date, not really a whole lot.
Did you buy a friendship ring?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
I can't recall.
Dana Carlson. All right.
Dana Carlson.
Dana
Ooh.
Carlson. Yeah, she was
Okay.
my first kiss, and that was one of my fondest memories. Really, is Mr. Rickard. I don't know if you remember the math teacher, Mr. Rickard.
I remember Mr. Large, and I remember Mr. No, I don't remember him because I can't remember his name. Anyway, no, I don't remember Mr. Rickard.
Rickard was staunch Wheatonite, very much Wheaton College. And I do recall he had a house on Main Street with a large front porch, as most of them did then. And he drove a little Volkswagen Beetle. And he did come out of the house one morning, and the Beetle was on his porch. So.
Who was the shop teacher down there? He would drive his motorcycle down the hallways.
George Bell?
Mr. Bell.
Mr. Bell.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Bell. He was idolized by all the
He was
all
a
the kids.
fantastic guy.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever saw a pair of bell bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
That's they were starting to make their the fashion statement then. I can't remember the kid's name, but they made him go home and change into a pair of regular pants.
Mm.
Yeah, we the friendship rings. We went steady for all of about a day or maybe two.
Well, you actually had personal contact for a day or two.
Yeah.
You went steady for weeks before that.
Right. Larry, did you have anything like that over at the Catholic school?
No, we didn't really. My explosion into the fashion world wasn't until high school because we wore a blue shirt and dark pants and black shoes when we went and a tie when we went to school up through 8th grade. So, yeah, the biggest memories I have at the school were the events, the large events that happened in the 60s, the Bay of Pigs, the JFK's assassination. Those things are vivid memories from come over the PA system, and I think it was a Cuban-based standoff. They actually made us get under the desk. I think we were in 3rd grade.
Oh yeah, we couldn't eat the snow because it was radioactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Those were like shockers that came out of nowhere, and in that time period too was just the media explosion. TV was on,
Right.
in which this news was instantaneous now, and things like that. From when I was in school, I remember we were asked to get involved in. This was the first presidential debates on TV with Nixon and JFK.
Right.
It was the first time televised presidential debates, and the fact that it was TV was a big plus for John F. Kennedy because he was a little more likable than.
Well, didn't Richard
President
Nixon kind of
Nixon.
just blend into the curtains? He wore the wrong colored suit or something? And
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, and that was media developing at that point, so they didn't have it all fine-tuned into exactly what suits you wear and all that kind of
right,
thing.
I mean,
so
it was just Milton Berle.
it was wide open and it was live and.
Right.
I was just reading something really just a week ago or so about that debate and how technically Nixon won that hands down, but the popularity vote on who won was very strongly Kennedy because he looked so good, he acted so well, he just carried himself and spoke so well that everybody wanted him.
Well, not only that, but there's still some rumor that the city of Chicago
Yeah,
helped him with
a little bit.
with some votes.
It's hard,
And-
it's hard for me to imagine even to this day that there would be any political clout in the city of Chicago at that point with
know.
Mayor Daley. It's
Mayor
just,
Daley was just, no.
Didn't happen. Didn't happen.
So in 1965, we got a new library, we got a new pool. The old library, I can remember that vividly. Going upstairs was the children's library, and we didn't have to. It was, we didn't have to climb up those stairs anymore. And then we had an Olympic-sized swimming pool over at Northside Park to complement the lagoon for ice skating and the warming house. Did either of you go to the new pool? Did you hang out there? What did we do over there?
yeah.
know.
The pool, the park itself, 4th of July was a big thing to be at the park and for the fireworks.
Right, because after the parade, the fireworks that were at Northside Park.
Yeah, and the parade was legendary. I think that was a big event for us as kids that
Oh, absolutely.
come from where we were on the northwest corner and go downtown and watch the parade. And people used to line up for that 6, 7 in the morning. There'd be chairs out there.
Yeah, it was a whole day.
Oh,
You do the parade in the morning, and then have your picnic, and then go do the fireworks. It was a great. It was just like apple pie and mom.
Yeah.
It was a great place, great day, and in a great town. There was some bad things that happened. One at St. Mark's was when the fire in the rectory in 1963, I believe. No, it was 66. Father Kirk was killed in our rectory, and that was a horrible thing. And but they built a new rectory. But the gentleman that designed it was named Lindstrom. He was a member of the parish. They lived on the countryside at the time, and he went on to design a lot of the Pizza Huts, which, if you look at the rectory, if they ever want to sell it, you could probably sell pizzas out of it now. But also, what I'd like to ask next is, what did you guys do to make extra money? Did you have paper routes? Did you wheel those 3-wheeled ice cream carts?
Yep.
Did you mow lawns? Or
Yeah,
what?
I mowed lawns and I had a paper out for the
Which paper?
Daily Herald. What was it? No, it was a Wheaton Post.
Daily
It was
Journal.
a local Daily Journal. There you
Okay,
go.
good,
Daily
good
Journal.
show.
Yeah, so we had, being out in the rural country like that, it was like a 2.5 mile radius.
And so you
Yeah, the ticket punch and everything
Right.
else,
Yeah.
collected every 2 weeks, and
Collected.
then
Unfortunately, my brother decided to use that ticket punch on my earlobe and
really.
kind of shortened up my newspaper career a little bit.
Well, I don't see an earring in there, so he
Well,
probably
not yet. No, it's grown.
He didn't go all back. Huh? I remember cutting grass and getting $1.50
Yeah.
for a yard, unless I did one over on Countryside where they were 200 feet deep, the lots, and that was $2.
Yeah.
You know. So I don't think you get anybody to cut your grass anymore for that.
No, not even a dumb neighbor kid
You know,
anymore.
and then pushing those Dale Eddy had one of those three-wheeled ice cream carts.
No, I had one of those.
Oh,
too.
did you too?
Yeah.
I knew I helped both you guys, or one of you guys, and it was just like pedaling that thing.
Yeah, they were heavy.
Yeah, they were
and
heavy,
very,
and then those
very
hills.
unstable. Yeah. And I do remember riding with Dale. We were coming off of Parkway down Driving Park and had to turn onto Ranch Road. And Dale didn't really have the best brakes. And he went to make that turn anyhow, and that thing flipped, rolled over, and there was popsicles and fudgesicles and dreamsicles all
I
over
hope
the
Dale
place. He was pretty skinned up. He was pretty skinned up, but he survived just like we all did after all the stupid things we did that we shouldn't have survived.
Right.
But
So-
I did the Daily Journal. I did the Daily News. Did the popsicle thing and mowed lawns. Mowed a lot of lawns, and a lot of them were on countryside.
I know when they were when we moved to Wheaton, they still had a lot of those homes to build, and one of the ways we make money is because we were a lot younger. Is instead of a lemonade stand, we just make the lemonade, put it in a wagon, and take it to the guys that were working on the houses,
Yeah.
and deliver it. And they'd always stop, and so it was you don't have to wait for one car every hour that might stop, or somebody come by, or drink it all yourself. In 1963, they started building Wheaton North High School. The first class went in 64. They graduated in 67. And we showed up in 1960, well, the end of 67. We were freshmen. It was a class of 68 were seniors. What was it like when you first hit that high school?
Well, my first impression was it just seemed so big. You're going from small where you had 8 grades packed into one building to a school like that. It just seemed immense to me when I went in there. And clean, and it was brand new at the time. So it was, it was interesting. And I went out for football my freshman year, the first year. So I got a little acclimated to the school and some of the kids, which was nice because coming from the St. John's, I wasn't part of the school systems that fed that.
Was Rex coaching yet?
That was Coach Rex's first year.
Okay.
When he came to Wheaton North.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was such a long school.
Yeah. Or the square, you hated to have a class on one side of the school and then have to get to the other side of the school.
You couldn't always cut through that.
The courtyard.
Well, not when there's 8 feet of snow.
No, exactly. They didn't shovel it, right.
And like I had said earlier, as I recall, it was built as the largest single-floor high school in the country at the time.
Yeah.
And carpet. It was carpeted,
Yeah.
which was just absolutely unheard of. We had seen, indoor-outdoor carpeting, we called AstroTurf, but this was actual carpet,
Right.
And it was
I remember they didn't have the freshman year. They didn't have the auto shop and electronics and all that area open up yet. It was still dirt floor over there. So I took this electrical course called Introduction to Power, and they bussed me over to Wheaton Central, and which was a trip unto itself. The bus was loaded with some real characters. I feared for my life. Most of them were seniors, and I've got to thank a guy by the name of Wes Falcon, who was a senior. He was an alumni of Washington, and he barber at King's for years. He saved me many times from getting stomped on. But they'd stop at West Street there and going over to open the door for to wait for the train, check for the train. And these guys would be rocking this bus back and forth, back and forth. I thought we were going to flip it. I don't know how many times. But Wes was, kind of took me under his wing, and and he had a good sense of humor. He told me that the Falcon mascot was named after him.
And you bought it?
Of course, I was a freshman. I had my pool pass.
You
I
had
had
to
my
buy it,
elevator
you know.
pass,
There
and
you
now
go.
I knew that the guy that the school was named after, the mascot. You know, so we learned to drive in high school. In 1969, 70. Where were the cruise spots? Where did you go cruising?
Oh. Roosevelt Road. Take it out west if you really wanted to do a
Right.
cruise.
Yeah, you go out to DeKalb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could go that far.
'Cause there was
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
between
Right, I mean, you could
St.
put your
Charles
foot
and
into it.
DeKalb, Yeah.
And be doing 120, and then a big block would come blowing by you at 140. You know.
Right.
But I specifically were thinking of cruising in downtown Wheaton. You'd go down Main Street over to Wesley and make a right,
Sure.
pass around the clock.
Downtown, I used to come down. There was a big hangout spot was Cock Robin on the
Sure.
Yeah.
corner.
Sure.
I mean, that was a big time hangout spot for a lot of the high school kids.
Right.
Especially in the summer and cruising downtown. It was tradition at the high school then to do a homecoming parade down Front Street.
Right.
And I remember being involved in those in my '64 Volkswagen. They were a lot of fun to do that.
And how many were in that Volkswagen, Larry?
We had it black, the windows black, they were blue and golded out. And, I think 13, but it was kind of like one of those clown cars. And we got pulled over by the police and one of the times, and he did ask me that question. I said, I don't know. And he looked in and I just saw arms and legs everywhere, and asked me to clean up my windows and please get off the street. So, but the parade still went on, so
Right.
we did okay.
So then you went past the police station and the post office, and then back up Front Street, and then
Yeah.
around the block again, or that circuit again. If nothing was going on, you could maybe take a ride up Gary Avenue to the A&W and see if anybody was
Yeah.
hanging around up there, or you'd head south on Main Street over to Roosevelt and head east over to Big Boy.
Well, the
And
downtown
cruise it.
too had the old theater, and
Right,
and,
exactly. You know, if you saw somebody hanging around on a corner or something, you just pulled over and started. You know, what's going on?
Right.
What's going on? Hey, no, nothing. What's going on? You know, and that's basically what was going on. Nothing, but
Right.
Well,
you know.
not having many cell phones around at that time,
Yeah.
the communication system was a little different. So you didn't exactly like text somebody to say, "Hey, meet me over here." You just got lucky. You had to go actually search for them. You know.
Yeah, unless there was a dance at the high school, you didn't.
Right.
You know, where you met, and then everybody went on their separate ways. Or, of course, if somebody's parents were out of town,
Well,
then that's why I never ever told anybody when my parents were out
Yes.
of town, because see, I saw some of the aftermaths of some of those parties. It was like, man, how are you going to explain this to mom and dad, your mom and dad, when they get home?
and you just can't hide all of their liquor.
No, I mean, clothes missing. It's just like it's hats on lampshades and stuff. It's like, man, why would you ever tell anybody your parents are out of town?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we learned that lesson the hard way one year.
Did you?
Yeah. There weren't enough big plastic bags around even then. So.
Hide all the evidence.
And then where do you put it?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Take it out to Herrick Lake Forest Preserve.
So there was a couple of coffee houses, and one of those you were involved with, Nick,
Yeah.
the Bridge out
Yeah,
in
we had,
Maryville,
yeah,
or in Marion Joy.
in Marion Joy. Well, it was, yeah. I had started there several years before working with an urban suburban day camp where we brought 50 inner city kids out and had 50 kids from the suburbs. We blended everybody together for the day, 3 days a week during the summer, and gotten to know the sisters there at the Bridge. And so they asked couple of my friends and I if we would be interested in putting together a coffee house. And well, what's a coffee house? You know, and we worked with them, and we built the Pier Coffee House in the basement of the bridge. And bridge building is gone now. It was in the
Well, that was the home of Mr. Hurley, Edward Hurley,
right.
and it was a Jarvis Hunt designed home.
Yeah,
You know, it was a beautiful home.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
Well, the Hurleys had donated quite a bit of land there to the west of their estate, and donated it to the Franciscan Sisters. And so then they built the Mother House, which is still there. This was before Mary and Joy Hospital and that sort of thing. But we built the coffee house, and we built it from concrete up. You know, we just filled it, we painted the walls, we put in the lighting. We even went to Commonwealth Edison on Swift Road in unincorporated Lombard there, and they donated cable spools to us. And three of us rolled 15 of these cable spools 2 blocks uphill to one of the guys' houses on Swift Road, and then the guys came with the convent truck and loaded them up. That was our tables. So
It was really groovy, if I remember right.
it was.
Yeah.
It was a really sharp place. We
It
were
was,
very
because it
creative
was a
with
great place to go. And
Great
just-
entertainment.
Yeah,
You know.
there's some great entertainment over there. There was another coffee house on Wesley, wasn't
That
there?
was the Expression.
Yeah,
So, and that was in, it's right across from what was, you know, round the clock snack time there, next to Wheaton Radio. And that was not us, it was a different organization that started that, and I think the city of Wheaton might have been fairly well involved with that. But that building used to be the Junior Achievement Building. And there was 4 or 5 junior achievement companies that were all high school kids with corporate sponsors. And they would all create a company, sell stock for, to bankroll it, and pay their stockholders back. They would build a product, sell it, turn a profit, if sometimes turned a profit, you know. But after they moved out of there, then the Expression moved in there. So, and that was our competition.
right.
That was our
And then
direct competition.
Wheaton Radio, wasn't that where they sold the records? And
They had records, they had...
did they have the silver dollar surveys there?
Oh, absolutely,
Absolutely. okay.
absolutely. That's where we
Right.
would stop and get them.
Yeah, every
'Cause they were the
week.
only record store in town.
Right.
You know.
You know. Landing on the moon was part of our experience. The riots, the
68 riots.
riots after Martin Luther King was killed. We in Wheaton really didn't have much as far as protesting or what have you. I mean, we were
No.
pretty insulated. We were pretty much a little bedroom community, and we didn't have. I remember there was a protest, war protest that went down Front Street and met at the library or at the post office. I don't know if somebody burned their draft cards or whatever. I covered that when I was worked at DuPage County Times. But pretty much we were fairly well insulated from most.
Yeah, I remember it being kind of like an out-of-world experience hearing all about all this stuff, because Wheaton was very conservative. And I believe Wheaton won All-American City in '67 for
67 or 68. Yeah, right.
for things that they had done to integration and housing and along those lines. So it was like you almost questioned, is this stuff really happening somewhere? You know, unless you went down there, which you wouldn't do.
Yeah.
At that time, it was too dangerous.
To give you an example of how conservative the area was, I worked for the Daily Journal right after Woodstock. A promoter wanted to bring some bands over to the county fairgrounds and have some kind of a 3-day festival. And the publisher, the Daily Journal, just refused to run his ad. He wanted to run a full-page ad would have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
When the concert started, I could still see John coming out of his office, and he's running up the editor. He's going, "There's some chippy hicks or hippie chicks or something down at the fairgrounds," and the editor says, "So," and he's, "Well, go take a picture of them or something, you know." But they just, it was just really a conservative town.
Yeah, and if you really think about that 60s era, the things that have come out of that era and how revolutionary so many things were, the riots, the equal rights, Martin Luther King, some of the programs that went into effect, the music revolution with the Beatles and the English wave coming over and Woodstock. Growing up in Wheaton, they kind of like touched me, but like way on the periphery. You
Right.
really, and hippies and all that whole revolution.
It just didn't show up in town.
Right,
It wasn't
yeah.
here.
It showed up on my end of the neighborhood.
Well,
I was involved on the fringes with that outdoor festival at the fairgrounds, and we had meetings. I believe Tiny Matthews was still with Wheaton as the city manager. Is that what my memory may be a little foggy on that? But we worked with Sheriff Doria, and they had asked me in on several of the planning meetings, not for the event, but for the periphery. And they were so scared to death that it was going to be another Woodstock. They didn't want it to happen, and the rules, they clamped down on it. I actually was at the festival, and there were very obvious undercover police officers there when you see a very large man wearing bell bottoms that were too short, sandals with white socks, and a big lump in their tie-dyed t-shirt where their pistol was, you know. And I was actually dragged out of there by Sheriff Doria himself.
Well, he was the undersheriff then, wasn't he?
He was
Wasn't
under Sheriff Doria.
Wade Shimp, I think, was the
Yeah,
sheriff.
Shimp was the sheriff, and Mr. Doria grabbed me and pulled me out because I didn't agree with him on something. Told me I was banned, but then nobody showed up, so he didn't even notice I came back the next day. But yeah, we were definitely shielded from a lot of the current events that were happening, and I think Wheaton, the church town,
Yeah.
had an
Right.
awful lot to do with that.
The
Because
college
Wheaton
and the churches.
Right, right.
Absolutely.
Wheaton had
Churches,
more-
religious publication companies, it's,
Yeah.
54 churches in Wheaton or something?
I think it was 34 when we were growing up.
34?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was-
yeah, we had more churches per capita
Yeah.
than any other town. So.
Yeah, it was quiet,
Mhm.
but a great place to get an education.
Yeah.
You felt safe.
Yeah, we never had to
Oh,
worry
no.
about.
You know, you never. You know, I don't remember robberies or murders or any of that nonsense. You know, stuff that going on. You could just get on your bike and ride and be gone
Right.
for most of the day, except run back home for lunch in the summertime, and then be home when that whistle went. You know, at 6 o'clock. You know,
Yeah.
it was a great place to grow up. And with that, I think I'll thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate this interesting conversation and going back to the 60s. And I want to thank everybody for watching, and hope to see you again on Wheaton Remembers. Thank you.